What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shooky from Shook Earth Media, and today we're back with The Last of Us. This is the third episode of the TV series, and I'm really jazzed about this episode. It's a heart-filled, self-contained episode, mostly in flashback, introducing a new character, and it's kind of just its own little movie, bookended by Joel and Ellie. I thought this episode was really emotionally affecting. I thought it was really well written. And I'm really excited to break it down with you guys. So I'm really curious what everybody's going to think about it in the comment section down below. But if you like zombie content and Last of Us and stuff like that, definitely keep it locked on Shook Earth Media. Hit the sub button so you'll know when I review the next episode. So I hope to hear your opinions down below. Before we get started, guys, I just wanted to say that the voice actress for Tess in the original Last of Us unfortunately passed away due to cancer at the age of 45. It's really sad. And there's a GoFundMe to support the family, so I just wanted to say if anybody was so inclined, I'll leave the link in the description if you want to leave a donation. But, thoughts and prayers to the family. It's a really sad situation. But I just wanted to say, thank you to a great performance in the original game and a great character. So, just wanted to pay my respects before we get into the review. And let's just jump into the episode. So we start off with kind of a bookend of the previous episode with Tess's death, and here we have Joel kind of making a little funeral cairn, I think is the right word, a little stack of rocks to commemorate her, and this scene, it's obviously just transitioning from the previous episode to the story of this episode, and it's just here with Joel, and we're back with Ellie, and this part of the episode felt a bit rushed to me because it felt like we're just kind of rushing past what should be a more significant conversation than it is. Ellie Ellie feels that Joel is blaming her for the death of Tess, which it's a reasonable feeling, and this conversation could have had a lot more emotional impact, I think, if we saw some of that. The line before she said that, Joel was like just slightly upset with her, but we really should have had, a bit more to get into with that. We should have noticed that he was doing that before she confronted him about it. It could have really been a more emotionally affecting that way. This way, it kind of feels like they're just trying to get that out of the way, address the end of the last episode so we can focus on the story here. It's not bad. It does work. It just feels a bit rushed pacing-wise in this particular part. And especially since later in the episode, there's a much more emotionally affecting conversation between Joel and Ellie about Tess. So that's just a small nitpick at the end of the day. We only got a couple criticisms for this episode. It's pretty good. I think it's a really solid drama episode. As a Walking Dead fan, it feels like a Walking Dead episode in that it's about the human story. It's not an action story. This episode in the games, it was a lot more action-packed in this particular portion of the game. This is completely different, a whole new take on it, and I think it actually makes sense. We'll get a little deeper into that later in the episode, but here we're doing some more lore building, world building, setting up how the infection started in the first place. I thought this was absolutely brilliant. Love this conversation here. Ellie's curious about how everything started, how the pandemic started. And she's going to the school that's run by this tyrannical government at the quarantine zone, this Fedra government. And they are not telling the full story about how the apocalypse started, kind of to sanitize their own image. Or at least that's the implication. That's what Ellie believes. So I thought this was absolutely brilliant. And just the sci-fi concept of the fungus was spread by the food supply in the wheat, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think we even saw some signs of that earlier. I have to rewatch some of the first two episodes, but I think they hinted at that earlier. Enough so that I saw a theory video about the wheat. Maybe it was based on a trailer or something, but, I thought that touch was absolutely brilliant. It's realistic. And here we are in a place where Joel stashed some items for them to use. And it makes sense. Joel's a smuggler. They're constantly traveling back and forth. They would have these places that they would return to in case they need something. I think that it's really smart. It makes a lot of sense. Of course, they wouldn't want to just carry everything that they own on them at all times. What if you get robbed? What if you are separated from your stuff? All these things could happen. Makes perfect sense for Joel and Tess to have been doing this. So one only small criticism I have for this scene is that Ellie goes off into the back room. Joel is here searching for the particular stash spot that he stashed his guns and whatnot, and he lets her kind of wander into the back room without checking it first. I would have thought, being a guy who is a protector, as is established at the end of the episode, in a brilliant line of dialogue we'll get to towards the end. I think that he wouldn't have let her go back there alone before he at least surveyed the area. And she does end up getting in danger back there, so it kind of makes him look a little sloppy, and it just kind of feels like something he wouldn't do given the situation. Although maybe he's a bit distracted because of the test thing. That could be a factor. I don't know if that's a thought in the script or not. But I forgot to mention earlier that they find a Mortal Kombat 2 machine, and Ellie's really excited about it. And of course, if you played the game Left Behind, the DLC, I think we know that we're going to flashback with Ellie later. There's going to be an episode with Ellie and Riley. We've heard vaguely about in this episode. And they connect over the arcade machine. Whether that's going to end up being in that episode, it's in the game. So I love the reference, in describing Mortal Kombat 2. I'm never really played many fighting games, but it's a nice touch and homage to the game, and I'm sure we're going to get a call back to it later. But yeah, Ellie drops down. She's not telling Joel about what she's doing. She's acting reckless, acting like a kid. This episode is doing a lot of heavy lifting to me, making me really get on Ellie's side. Of course, she finds some, I don't know if these are tampons or the pads. I don't know exactly what brand or whatnot. Sorry, ladies, I don't know all the answers. But yeah, she's got the sanitary pads for the lady business. It makes sense, it could be any object that they need. It doesn't really matter what object it is. That's something you don't typically see in, I don't think they've mentioned it in Walking Dead episodes or anything. So yeah, why not? It's a survival thing that she would use. Makes total sense. This, I really love. This is like the one obligatory zombie scene we have in the episode. There aren't many zombies, so they made sure they wanted to get a really detailed one up close. I love the makeup here. And it's a pretty nice touch that she cuts open the forehead, and you can see the veins, or the whatever you would call it, that you could see the fungus under the skin. Really nice touch, brilliant. Not in the games. It's really cool. Great design. It's tragic. It's a little scary. I think this little scene is very good. Despite my little criticism earlier. And I like the tension. Ellie wants a gun this whole time. She doesn't feel safe. She, of course, wants her to be able to defend herself. I like that we're holding that off. It makes sense. There's going to be a moment later when Joel finally does trust her that's going to really pay off. Clearly that's what they're setting up. Even if you haven't seen the game, I think you know that. And here we get... This is the first promo image they released from the series. So I have to wonder if this is the first episode they filmed. I have to wonder if this is the first scene that they filmed. The first day of footage was this. Maybe. I don't know. But I think that this establishes one of the major themes of this episode. One of the reasons I think I like it so much, I really connected with it, is the theme here that we take things for granted. We take incredible things for granted. And of course, in an apocalyptic story where you're devoid of all the luxuries of modern life, it becomes a lot more significant to see an airplane. Ellie's never been on a plane. She talks to Joel about how has he had been on a plane, and she's really jealous that he was on a plane. She recognizes it for the amazing feat that it is. However, Joel, of course, mentions at the time, it was really inconvenient to him to have to go on an airplane. He had to get the middle seat. It wasn't the best experience. Of course, maybe he didn't even want to travel to where he's going. This is a theme that comes back over and over again in this episode. And again, another reason I really connect with it. And it's something that's not really present as much in the source material. Of course, in any apocalyptic story, you're going to have to touch on these things. But I think this episode really drives it home in a way that games can't, because the game is obviously focused on giving you that gameplay loop experience, giving you threats and obstacles to overcome. And the story, of course, takes a back seat when it comes to that kind of thing. I think I actually got the order of events wrong. So this is when they're talking about the outbreak, which is which is cool. And here we get a scene where they find a mass grave, basically a bunch of people who couldn't fit in the quarantine zone according to the evil tyrannical government. They just murdered all these poor people, and I think that it's a really it's a great point. They didn't really show this in the games, but it's further establishing the villains that we have on our tail, what the Fireflies are fighting against. I think it's important to show how harsh this world is. And, I like bringing in Ellie's humor a little bit. The forbidden fruit aspect of, like, Joel doesn't want her to see this, and then she says, that makes me want to see it more. So, again, that dichotomy, that childhood rebellious nature in her, I think is really important to her character here. So I like the character. And here we're introduced to Bill, who we've heard about in previous episodes, and we get to see it's the exact same group that Joel and Ellie are looking at, or at least it's hinted at that they're the same group because there's articles of clothing that are matched in this group of people here. So they're being carted away by Fedra to be killed, and in the basement, Bill is hiding away, and they leave without him. So he manages to escape the evacuation, and he doesn't. They don't. I don't know why they don't check the basement. That's one thing that's confusing to me. But other than that, I love this prepper aesthetic here. And the character, I think, is very well established right off the bat. You know exactly what kind of guy he is. You see the wine that he drinks. You see, how many guns he has, the fact that he's a prepper. So all these aspects of the character, you know exactly who this guy is 2 seconds flat. You got the American flag, you got the nice house, you got the guns down below. You can picture the kind of person that this guy is. And I think it's really great to establish a character like this. Of course, characters like this are very helpful in the apocalypse. These guys have been preparing for that for years. They used to be considered kooky. Now they seem like, they knew the future or something like that. So I like this early scene here, setting up the montage with all the prep work he has to do. He's got to get fuel. He's got to get the generators going. He's got to go to the Home Depot to get supplies. He's setting up traps. He's, setting up a perimeter. He's setting up, the hole that the character falls into later. So it's a very quick, efficient montage. Basically, this kind of montage, if you guys saw my Tales of the Walking Dead review, that first episode with Terry Crews, if that episode started with a scene like this, we would have been off to the races. This is everything that Tales episode should have been. So this is an incredible episode. It's a self-contained episode. It's not a huge budget episode. At least it didn't feel like that to me. This is a small-scale story about two characters, and I think that they did there's great performances in this. Nick Offerman, of course, he's played a character similar to this on Parks and Rec. So my kind of guy, by the way. He and I probably agree on a lot of things, but we won't get any further into it than that. But I do like all the gadgetry he has. He has this radio thing, so he can open this gate, get in and out safely. It locks behind him. I think this is great, and it's different than the games. In the games, we're in more of an urban setting, and there are traps on all the alleyways, and it's much more labyrinthian, and it's more of a maze, of course. And I think that fit the game very well. And there are portions where Joel gets stuck in traps, and I kind of missed that stuff. I liked all that aspect of the game. However, I think putting it in this setting makes a lot more sense, that this guy has a house. It's his family house. He's been preparing. He's a prepper. So he doesn't want to leave his house. He wants to set up home base here. He's not going to go into the city where there are more people and it's more dangerous. It actually makes a lot more sense, logically speaking, that he would pick a place like this. So given that it's not a game and we're on television, I think it makes sense to take it out of the urban setting and put it into this more rural setting. I think it's perfect. I don't mind the fact that it's completely different from the games. Although the trap scene where Joel's hanging upside down, I do miss that. I wish that was there. I wish there was a bit more of an action scene. And one aspect of the game, I'm gonna stop talking about the game in a second here. But one part of the game is that he would use zombies as a deterrent. So he would have hordes of zombies kind of stashed away, so that when people would try to attack them, that they would get attacked by the zombies. I wish that aspect was in here. Maybe there just wasn't time in the episode to have that. But maybe we'll have a different character with an aspect like that later. But I really like the idea of using the zombies as a trap, as a weapon, as self-defense. I miss that. So, it's a small detail. Honestly, it's not that important in the grand scheme of things, but I do kind of miss it. But that's just me as a fan talking. This introduction here. Now, Joel, earlier in the episode, he said that Bill's not nice. Frank is nice, Bill's not. And we see why later. That makes a lot of sense. However, in this part, I kind of felt like he was a little too nice. It would have, I think, maybe had a bit better of a payoff if he was a bit less quick to trust. However, I think we want to imply that there's an attraction kind of immediately. And they do end up going the romantic route with these two characters, Bill and Frank. I don't remember in the original source material if it's implied that they're a couple or not. I interpreted it originally that they were just friends. Frank, I think, was dead before you get to meet Bill. So I don't really remember if it's established or not. If it was subtle. It wasn't a big deal. It's the core of this episode, the emotional core of this episode, and I loved it. I thought it was really sweet. It's a nice, a heartwarming kind of scene, and then a tragedy at the end. It's despite the ruthlessness of this world, there's something really nice that happens. That being said, we haven't seen as much of the darkness as we maybe should have to get the full effect of a storyline like this. However, that's, honestly, that's kind of a nitpick at the end of the day. But yes, I like this scene. I like how he doesn't trust him. He's still got the gun on him. He scans him for the infection. And then he ends up inviting him inside for a hot shower. Another part where, we don't really think of a hot shower in today's world as anything special, because we do it almost every day. So, so it depends where you live, right? Some people in Europe, they don't do it every day. America, we shower every day. Most of us do anyway. And, but, unless I forget sometimes. But yeah, so I love that theme coming back yet again, that the shower is something really incredible. And then here we get even another establishment of that. We have, a very finely prepared meal, where it would be a nice meal even right now in today's world. Like if somebody gave you that meal, like, wow, you're really good at cooking. You have really good taste. That's the kind of thing you would say. It's very finely prepared. It's artistically presented. So it's definitely above the average meal. It's like a 5-star dinner, but in the apocalypse, it's an orgasmic thing. And he obviously, Frank is very excited to see that. And he has the wines, and he has the know-how to know what wines to pair with which meal. So, I like seeing that other aspects of Bill's character here. And the only nitpicky thing is, I know there's, with wine drinkers, this guy, Frank, knows enough about wine to know what that type of wine should be paired with. There's a procedure that you go through. I've seen people do it. I'm not a wine guy, but a lot of people, you swish it in a certain way, you smell it, why not go through the whole indulgent thing where you smell it, you swish it around, if we're really establishing that we're supposed to be smelling the roses, appreciating the finer things in life, which is the major theme of this episode. I would have liked to see perhaps a little more indulgence, but again, that's a nitpicky thing. The main thing is that Frank really sells how amazing this meal is. At the same time, he's breaking his shell. Bill is breaking his shell. We've established him enough as kind of a detached kind of guy that, I think he does a good job at being awkward and then breaking that shell bit by bit. And, they connect over the piano. And I thought it was a beautiful scene, man. I really liked the singing. It went on a little long for me, and then the kissing happens and whatnot, and then we get a sex scene. Basically, it went on a bit long for me personally, but I'm not going to complain about it. It is HBO, it is expected. So and then we get a time skip, and they're having a lovers' quarrel. and Frank wants to pretty up the neighborhood because, you know, this is their life, this is their world, this is all they see every day, all day, every day. He wants to make it, again, establishing that we want to really appreciate the finer things in life. We don't want to just survive. It's not good enough to just survive. We need to appreciate our surroundings a bit more. So I love these. They establish all. It's very efficient. They establish a relationship very early on, and the pacing is a bit slow with the romantic kissing part and the sex scene and stuff. Maybe trim that down a little bit, but I think it's an important scene, so I'm not going to complain too much. And then we get a backstory of Joel and Tess and how they met Bill and Frank, and the uneasiness between Bill and Joel. I absolutely love. You know, I love the gun on the table, given the apocalypse and everything. The fact that this guy, he's been prepping for years, even before, he was paranoid even before the apocalypse. So it makes perfect sense for his character. And I like the uneasy kind of, they have respect for each other, Joel and Bill, but they're not friends, you know? But the real connection is between Frank and Tess. So I think it's, you know, in the bond they have at the end, they come back at the end, Bill leaves that note and mentions that they're the protectors. They have similarities. And that's going to come back later in the season, at the end of the season. It's going to be amazing payoff. And I thought that touch was absolutely brilliant. And it gives this whole side story purpose. The connection between Joel and Bill, how they're both protectors. They both serve the same purpose, although Bill assumed it was for Tess. But we know now that's going to be for Ellie, not Tess. So it gives this whole story, which, you know, a lot of people might say, oh, the pacing was slow. I want the plot to progress. Maybe people wouldn't be interested. I don't agree with that. I'm just saying I'm assuming people are going to think that. So, but with that bookend at the end, that connection between Joel and Bill, that gives this purpose, like I said. So I'm just repeating myself at this point. But this is a beautiful scene, man. I think it's great. And then we have another kind of romantic scene where they're running. Bill's getting older, and then they traded for strawberry seeds, and they've been growing those. And then it's a really nice, sweet scene, and the humor as well. There's humor here. You know, they're talking about we're not gonna bang in the strawberries. So I thought it was funny, man. Now here is the scene I have to nitpick. The action scene in this episode left a little bit to be desired. I think it's cool. You know, we got guys, raiders coming in right after Joel warns Bill about raiders coming in. We see that happen, and then it's cool to see the traps go off, the guys getting burned, etc. But there's a few things here, okay? I know that Frank is not a prepper like how Bill is, and I know that Bill, they have a difference in personality. Frank doesn't probably like to hold guns around. You would have a gun in the bedroom. I don't know how you would exist in this apocalypse without a gun in the bedroom. That would, I don't think anybody, even if you're a reasonable person in the apocalypse, you're not going to want to have, you're going to want to have it in arm's reach when you wake up, okay? He hears gunshots outside. He goes to the window. Bro, there's lights and everything. Like, they can see you. That bothers me, okay? And then he's looking out the window. We find out Bill's outside, so he's looking at Bill, okay? Which I get. But he's looking out the window instead of trying to arm himself real quickly. I think that pistol should have been upstairs. You know, he's getting shot at, and yet he still goes outside. I don't know why he thinks it's a good idea to go out here. He's just risking himself. You know, if he wants Bill to come back in, he should come inside. Also, Bill's standing out in the middle of the street with no cover. Almost certainly, this man would have had a contingency plan. He would have had a place to bunker down, preferably with elevation, so he can see over the trees, so he can see over the fence, so that he could see them before they see him, and so he can have a bunch of maybe sandbags around him. He would be prepared for this situation. He wouldn't be standing out in the middle of the street. And it really bothers me that he risks his life this way. And I understand that he's the protector. I understand he wants himself to be in danger, but instead of Frank, but him putting himself in danger puts Frank in danger as well. So I kind of hated this scene, and it really sucked me out of it. It felt so rushed. There's even a water tower. I think he would be sniping from the water tower. I saw that in one of the wide shots earlier. It's really silly. So, and they have him bleeding out. I don't know why they bothered having him get shot, because we get a time jump right after this and then he's fine. I don't know that that's in a place that you can get shot and just live like 100%. It looks like a dangerous place to get shot. But, people survive crazy things. The human body is capable of incredible things. So, I like, we've established at this point that they have that radio code that we mentioned in the first episode. So that's cool with the decades of music. So I like that. I forgot to mention earlier that they had kind of a funny scene where they argue about their differing views, and Frank talks about how, the Bill believed in conspiracy theories like 9/11, which makes sense because the apocalypse took place in 2003, so that would have been the hot topic at the time. And I love the line where he's like, and the government were all Nazis, and he's like, the government are all Nazis. That was my favorite part, probably of the whole episode, to be honest with you. So I thought that was really funny. I like that line, and I like that all too often they'll make a character like this, a prepper type of guy, and they'll make them look like an idiot. And here they poke fun at it without him being the dumbass, you know what I mean? So and I respect that we can have differing points of views portrayed respectfully on the show. I always appreciate that. But I like this aspect that Frank is starting to paint things, and we get this time jump, and now they're older, way older than I expected. And I pretty much saw at this point, okay, the game stuff is definitely not happening. I had assumed that Frank would die, and then we would get Bill seeing Joel and Ellie, and then we get the whole situation with them trying to get the car so that they can go to the next place. But of course the game is designed that way because video games are designed such that you have to get objects to progress, and it's this cycle where you get a goal, you're kept from the goal, you achieve the goal, you move on to the next thing. That's kind of boring in a TV show, so I can understand why they didn't want to do that, and they just had this car ready to go for Joel and Ellie. So functionally, the story serves the same purpose. But I thought that these scenes were really, really emotionally affecting, really moving. And I mean, I don't really have much to say other than it just made me really sad. Really, really tragic, great ending. The only small complaint I have is, we don't know what disease it is. And that's fine. I'm not saying we have to know what disease it is. However, I think that this would have made more sense. Frank wants to commit suicide. He wants to have his final day, and I get where he's coming from with that. I just felt like if we could have seen that he's suffering, like every day is painful. He's had enough at this point. Like I would have preferred that. As opposed to, it just looks like he's tired and he's in a wheelchair. It doesn't look like his life is that bad right now that he should be trying to kill himself. It feels a little bit selfish because of that. But, it's kind of a nitpick because, I'm assuming he is suffering on the inside. We just can't see it. I would have preferred, it would have been a stronger finish if we knew that he was suffering really, really badly. If he was coughing, maybe. If you could just tell, like, if he was weak in the voice. They needed to do a little bit more to get me to 100% buy into this. But Nick Offerman's acting in this is, wow, amazing performance, man. And just this final montage with their final day together, really tug on those heartstrings. And it worked for me. I was really moved by this. I can see where maybe it's cliche, maybe it's predictable. It works. It's a cliche because it works. So, and then we got, the double suicide plot twist, which I did see coming. Where, he pours the pills in the wine, and then it turns out that, the pills were already in the wine, so they're both going to go out together. It's kind of a tragic romantic thing, and it's really sad. And it's just a really powerful scene. Really nice capper. It's just a separate independent movie, basically. and we just get these small stories. It's kind of like how throughout the game there's parts where you're just reading documents that people left behind, and they just tell these tiny little vignettes, and that's what we get. And at the beginning of the episode, I was like, oh, that's interesting. We didn't get a vignette this episode because both of the other episodes started off with a unique vignette. That's, of course, because we got that later in the episode with all the flashbacks and stuff. And that worked for me. I liked that we started with Joel and Ellie and ended with Joel and Ellie, had this independent plot line in the middle. So that works really well. And then Ellie finds the note, and it's this is the moment where she mentions Tess. And this is where the emotional payoff with the Tess thing works really well. And they have this exact dialogue from the game where he says, we don't talk about Tess ever, and you do what I say, that kind of thing. And you don't tell anybody about the condition. That's word for word copy paste from the game. So every episode has to have at least one copy paste dialogue from the game. I think pretty much the rest of this episode is entirely unique dialogue wise. So we had that one scene that's pretty much a 1-for-1. So here, Joel has to make a battery. I almost wish we saw a bit of that, but it's kind of not necessary at this point. So he made a battery for the truck, and like I said, in the game, there's all this stuff they had to do to get the truck running, but we don't see any of that in this, and I think it's for the best. Again, we don't need the gameplay mechanics, so we don't need just pointless action scenes. So I much preferred having a more heartfelt episode as opposed to just an action-oriented episode. That being said, pacing wise, in terms of the season overall, we got to quicken things up with this next episode. This was a really nice, heart-filled episode where we slow the pace down a little bit. Next episode's got to be big. It's got to be loud. It's got to be gunshots. It's got to be crazy zombie action. There's got to be something big in the next episode. So that's pretty much it. They explore the house a little bit. We get to see a little bit more of Ellie's personality. And in this scene right here, man, where like she's playing with the clock and it falls and she finds the gun, she stores it away, and just the way like the actress is carrying herself. At this point, I was like, you know what? That's Ellie. Like I don't know. I'm sold now. Maybe I'm been skeptical of the casting this whole time. I'm starting to feel it, man. I'm starting to get into it. We'll see how I feel next week. But here's, again, we have yet another instance of appreciating the finer things in life, the smaller things. Ellie's never been in a car, or at least she's acting like she's never been in a car. I would have thought, like, the Fireflies have cars, right? She must have been in a car at some point. Phaedra's got some cars. I know it's probably not as common that she would be in cars as, of course, we are in the modern day. But, I would have thought that she would have at least seen it once. But it is cool, again, to reestablish that. And the disagreement over the music, I think that's from the game too, so that's fun. The fact that she's like, oh yeah, it's okay, even though he's really enjoying the music. So again, just a beautiful episode. And then with the final shot, we're in the bedroom where the bodies are, just looking out the window that we know is open. I thought that this was brilliant, because it's just a really smart shot to have, because we know that this is, we don't need to see the bodies though, but just having us in that room with the while the song's singing about a love that I forget what the song's lyrics are, but singing about love, and that's the end of the episode. And I thought it was beautiful. I liked the episode. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. We had some nitpicks as always, but in general I thought it was pretty good. So I'm waiting for next week, eager to see it. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode as well, but if you didn't, I would love to hear about it. I'm not going to get mad at you, I promise. Well, let me know what you guys think, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.